and so much hope, so much beauty. Thank you. Thank you, my friend. It is my great joy now to introduce Sheldon Hughes, my dear friend, our dear friend. He's a longtime member of the board of the SRI and the USR, and he's also a board member at Meditation Mount. And he and Helena together for years have created esotericadvent.org, which works rhythmically to actualize a living application of the Ageless Wisdom's teachings. I think many of you are aware of this, but if you're not, please check out Esoteric Advent. But the point is, all of you who have known Sheldon over many years know him as a great lover of humanity and a true endless source of encouragement and love for us all on our journey. Sheldon is such an embodiment of generosity and compassion and kindness. They're ever present. And he is a true friend of the work and one with us all. Sheldon, so much love. I'm happy to hear what you will offer.
Okay. Well, thank you very much, Heidi. I think what I'm going to try to do, given my limited experience with the computer, I must say, is figure out how to get my face where you are. I don't know if I need that or not. I don't need it, but yeah, I think we can move things around a little bit.
We see you, so it's good. You're just basically seeing the last person who talked square, but we see you.
Well, okay. Well, that's all right. Yeah, I don't mind that at all. Okay. Well, I'm just thinking about what we just heard, and wonderful presentation by Alexander and company. Very important, kind of our relationship to the network that we're a part of in this larger network that's building. Where I'm going to go, though, is more personal for several reasons. One of them is I've always had a kind of a feeling of myself as quite young. Now, you can see me, I can't, what do I say about myself, but quite young and, vigorous and things along these lines. But in recent years, something, I don't know whether it was what I was eating or not eating or something else like that, but something was not working well. So I am thinner, quite a bit thinner than I used to be. I don't know what to say, but I mean, I'm not too worried about it, but we talk about it a lot. So, but I've been going through a whole process of what does this do to my mind, what I'm thinking about, and where do I go? So it turns out, much to my, not surprise, but April 1st of this year, 84, I turned 82. Now, I don't believe it's 82, but somehow, how these numbers add up, people say, well, you can't get away from it. So I don't really feel that at all, but it's there. And so I think, well, maybe I ought to just, see what that means and check into it and look at myself from that angle. But I don't want to get too far lost in that. But what we're doing together is sharing so much rich information. And yeah, I've been involved with our conferences. Gosh, it's going to be 25 years, at least closer to 30. And I've been concerned that sometimes we don't really sit down and think, what does this mean to me? What's happening to me? What's going through me? Let's get on to the next topic and learn some more. So there's a lot of things to learn, and it's wonderful to learn them. But looking at ourselves and seeing what are we bringing in and what's evolving becomes a very important, I think, way to look at oneself. So this is going to be a little bit of, built along those lines, is to encourage that kind of reflection. Now, what I want to do is, I want to mention that, so many of the conferences that we've had, particularly the ones in person, when you can watch what people are doing, you get the sense that what one talk goes, another talk goes. It's hard to get this all together and figure out what to do with it, how to handle it. So we want to get better with that as a whole. But what's important is that we ourselves, can sit down occasionally and say, well, what is going on with me? Where am I in this process of evolution? Where do I find myself belonging or leaving? And fit myself to this greater love, light, and power that wants to come forth. Okay, so what I'm going to do is talk a little bit about some central things that have been key in my life, and ask you to think about what's going on in your life. It may not be that much, or maybe huge, but anyway. And I'm going to just start and began to write some notes to myself, and I remember some things from when I was quite young. Well, I was living in California by age 3, 3 years old, and we had a tree just outside our small apartment. And for better or for worse, my mom was unhappy. Dad would travel and that kind of stuff, but Mom had her own problems, and she was a yeller. She was quite she could make the noise. And when she did, I left the house and went out, and I just stood by my tree. And sometimes she would say, "What are you doing with that tree?" I would say, "Well, I'm giving it a hug." And she would say, "Get in here." And I would say, no, the tree and I are getting along. So just, I wasn't this active. I just, that tree for me was now that I look at it in the past, that for me was a presence of some aspect of the spirit. It could be the spiritual hierarchy. I'm not sure. I didn't see anything and didn't have a whole lot to say, but I felt like I was, wherever I went, even if I walked myself to school, I wasn't scared because I had a friend. And this friend was a he, okay, fine, but always with me. And so I thought, well, okay, this is good. This is very good. Well, at the same time, it turned out that over the years, I began to realize I was pretty good in school. The teacher sent a note home to my mom saying, "Did you see what your son had just done with this exam?" And she said, "Well, what did you do?" And I said, "I don't know what I did with it." Well, the teacher told Mom kind of how well I did with this, and that for a moment did change her relationship with me. Sometimes saying, "I didn't realize you were so good at school," and I got that 3rd grade. And I thought, okay, this is good. So for me, going to school, learning some things was a joy. I also began to realize that I had some physical gifts. I could run fast. I didn't mean much when I was a kid, very, very young, but turns out you begin to play soccer, you begin to play a little bit of football and that kind of stuff, baseball. And I was noticeably quick. I'll put it this way. So that got developed, and that gave me a real sense of confidence in myself, in terms of what, my mind's working pretty well. And just to make the long story short and not embarrass anybody, but I did get all A's in high school. I got one B, and I was unhappy with that, but who cares? It was a big deal back in those days. So much so that when I went to college, I thought, okay, what I want to do here is I want to go to a school that has beauty in it. I was in a singing group in high school, and I wanted to find a singing group that worked that way. And I was interested in religion in some ways, not so much the church stuff, but other things I would be reading. Could be as old as oh gosh, what's his name now? Who wrote this? Great books. I'll think about it anyway. But it's things you read and you just fall in love with the material. So I got I was somewhat known in my community because of what I read. I'm saying to you, um, I picked three schools I thought were small enough that I could work in, and it would challenge me. So I picked Harvard, Princeton, and out here in California. And so I went to visit, and I got to Harvard and thought, ah, boring. I didn't come to California, but I went to Princeton next. And when I got there, I got in this great big tower. I heard this group singing songs. That was all guys in those days. So what do you say? But the music was beautiful. The flowers were there, and I thought, this is where I want to be. So what happened for me was I got in easily, of course, and had a couple of I had a class in Buddhism, and I thought and then I had another one. This is just so I figured out religion, and I didn't want to get so much, as I say, into the church stuff, but just kind of what is religion teaching. So that was a major factor in my life. And besides the singing group that I joined, which was great to get out, and frankly, in those days, see somebody else with guys and girls were out there, so it was good. But my point is that I think that my sense of myself, okay, so we're coming into the Vietnam War time. Now that's back, some of you won't remember this very well, but I decided I did not want to be in the war. I was not going to go on a big protest. So I signed up to join Union Theological Seminary, which is a place where people school themselves for religious work. And I got involved with a project in East Harlem, living in East Harlem with people, helping people to take care of the problems that they were facing there. But we were in a small group with a great teacher, and we would read the Bible, and and just the way that Bill could do this, I was just always touched. Whatever we were reading, it just opened my heart again. So I thought, this is very interesting. I'm not sure what to do with it. I was moved. I did spend a year, more or less, in the seminary, and I came across some teachers who were just beginning to work with students who wanted to get into dialogue, self-oriented dialogue, and building relationships. We're about 1965, something else like that. It was kind of new. And I was blown away by what finally happened. People opened up, they shared their ideas, they shared their thoughts, and it was just totally moving. So I said, hey, when I finish, I want to get a job doing this kind of stuff. And they said, well, go. There's an organization that's been going about 15 years now, and you should go to one of their seminars and see what it's like. So I went. NTL was the name, National Training Laboratories. They had a program not too far away from where I was. I happened to be the youngest person in the group. I loved it. I mean, it was just amazing. People would just start talking, and there would be interplay back and forth, and then relationships would build, and by the end, everybody's in tears. Love would break out. That's what I said. I thought, I think this is good stuff. Love breaks out, So that kind of set my direction. And within about a year, I finally landed a job that looked like it would work pretty well with one of the large banks down on Wall Street, Bankers Trust Company. And they just were assembling a group of people who were dealing with, you call it right human relations today, but dealing with bringing people together, getting them to talk to each other and build positive relationships. I loved it. I mean, it was just, I did that for a long time. And then I got drawn out to do other kinds of consulting work by some who saw me working, et cetera. What I found was that listening, sharing, being there, just being there with people was magic. It just was it's something different. People did not leave these sessions, even though if all guys, much closer relationships. The language got much nicer. People did come visit with each other, et cetera. So I thought, there is some magic here that I want to be a part of. So that has been, as a matter of fact, we still do some of this kind of work with one client now who brought us in with Chase Manhattan Bank many years ago. He's not a new place, but we met him there. And we've been doing this kind of twice a year, I think. It's still a great mode. And this is people who are, it's more women than men in here, but when we are able to get them talking to one another, listening to one another, and sharing, it just becomes beautiful. Yeah. Yeah. We don't know what you guys do, but there's some kind of magic here. I don't know how you do it, but they pay us for it, so this is helpful. Anyway, around the middle 80s, I heard somebody talking about work that was going on at Lucis Trust. They didn't know what it was. And there was a guy that was speaking there who was not the main leader, but Michael Robbins, who was a great speaker. So I wandered over there and came in and I met Marianne Castellino. She said, "Oh, Michael and I worked together." So I discovered that they were already putting together what we would see the results of even back then. I heard Michael give this talk, and I was just blown away. I mean, he was talking about large concepts, but with such passion. I was just thrilled. And I said, so I asked him afterwards, what are you guys doing? He said, well, we're going to build our own consulting firm, and we're going to begin to have yearly conferences. I went to, I think, the second yearly conference in 1989, I think, or 88. Robert Burrell was there as well. And here are people coming in from all over the world to take a look at from this perspective, the Alice Bailey perspective, you might say. So I was just, I thought, my God, this is the way of the future. So got involved with that. Still kept on doing something. And one of the meetings in the early 90s, I happened to be walking down the street, and a friend said, "Hey, I want you to meet my friend." So he's walking along with a beautiful woman, and her name Helena. No, come on, I'm kidding. I don't know how to say this, but what happened to me was I was struck, of course. What happened was a word kept coming in my mind, "your future," and I thought, "Oh no, not going to do this one. No, this is not good." But I couldn't get over it. This was there. So that happened. And then within a year, we ended up in the same group of people working with Michael and going through this. And she even invited me to, if I needed a place to stay and not spend money, stay there and that kind of stuff. And so we would just talk back and forth. And I really developed, what would I say? A great feeling for Helena. And I told her about it. She said, "No, I don't want this at all." Well, what I did was I asked her, I said, "Look, you are so good at many things, and I consult, I go down to this country, I go down to this state, that place. Why don't you work with me on some of these things and see what it is?" She resisted, but finally she came down to one, and it worked. It just kind of worked. And so gradually things began to I would say mesh with the two of us. Okay. So what's happening to me by this time, we're getting now a little bit closer to the country falls apart around 2007, 2008, and everything with banks and stuff like that. So we had begun to do some work together. So that was good. At the same time, I was watching Helena with the computer. Now, you don't need this. You can imagine this, but in my mind, she could do anything. And one of these times, she had put up a picture of something on the computer, and I said, and we're reading the Bailey work, all the time. And I looked at this and thought, "Oh my God, what a beautiful expression!" And I said, "You need to make this." I said, "This in the book." Maybe I didn't push that hard. Anyway, I said, "This is wonderful. Keep doing this. Keep doing this website," because I thought it was just absolute magic. And that led us into a lot of things we're doing together today in that way. But my point is that there were a number of points in my life when groups and joy and a kind of, sometimes it would be love, but sometimes it'd be very direct, or just a kind of appreciation of one another. And I kept thinking, this is the way forward for the world. That's it. So that's been on my mind for many years now. At least 50. Who cares? So what's happened to me, though, in recent years is, I'm not quite sure exactly how it happened, but not sure I was eating the same kind of foods, but they weren't right for my body. All of a sudden, I am losing weight. I thought, well, I mean, I'm 165. I don't mind coming down to 140, 150. But then it kept on going on. And I thought, I asked my brother, I said, what is this happening? He says, you better get yourself examined because you are just not getting something here. Well, I've shrunk. I mean, you can probably see this in the mirror here. I can see it myself. But I've stopped shrinking, which has been eating better foods, etc. But what's going on here is a pause, rather frequent pause, to listen to what is coming through in terms of the teachings that we have that are not just wonderful words, but when you read them, you come alive. You are just filled. For me, it's joy. It's watching things work together, and beauty. All I can talk about these days are those three things. So what we've been working on, for me anyway, is better food to eat. Can't say it's, say let's get the right kind of foods. We've gone through some processes. Not much has happened along those lines. Still about the same, but at least things are not. I am not disappearing. I guess I'll put it this way. Well, I'm saying this because I'm hoping that as I say a few of these things, you think about your own lives and moments, experiences that you've had, which really have touched and opened you up through what I'm going to say is the soul. Now, we're given the charge to develop our souls, and I think most of us do this. But part of the process is reflecting when something really has worked, or you discover another aspect of yourself coming forth, or people say, gee, I love how you handle this. You begin to get a picture of fuller soul control. And that's really what I'm all about these days. And I think I've developed a pretty good pace here. And the teachings now are pretty much ingrained for me in terms of how to live, how to move forward, etc. And so what I'm interested in is, when we stop this in a moment, you all thinking about, maybe want to sharing something if you can, about what has created this kind of soul contact in ways you could recognize it. Otherwise, we tend to have it and we forget about it. And we go on and just kind of keep doing our same old thing. But once we realize a certain level of the soul has been developed, and that's where our interest is, we begin to see things in the larger picture. We can even get the idea of what DK is saying the hierarchy wants and how they want it, how we have to work together, in loving activity. That is, I'm saying this because what I want to see is if that's something anybody would want to share during this conversation. Well, it's not all about me. Oh, hey. I heard her say something very nice, recognizing those spiritual events, that really do bring this thing out. And as we do, what's been obvious to me only the last 3 or 4 years, we talk about the spiritual hierarchy, which are people who are not visible now, as the Christ, of course, but they have come close to humanity. And that when they come close, when we feel it. What I'm recognizing now is they are with us and we are with them. So it's a noticing those kinds of moments and maybe what led to it. That's great. But even more, we follow in through those doors so that we become much more susceptible to their living presence, because they will give us more and more as time goes on. Ideas, thoughts, general direction. And as we are able to follow that, ourselves, our loved ones, the groups we're a part of, we are helping to create the future that we need. So I'm going to stop here, I think, at this time, 1:10. I'm supposed to be done here. What time is it? 1:40. We're in the dark here, but that's okay. Anyway, so this is what I want to do, is just open the door for anybody who wants to share what's going on in their life, or ways in which they've discovered the life in the teachings that we are getting. It's one thing to hear Michael speak and be just, amazed and fired up. But when that stuff gets in us, we become living souls. Okay. So what I'm going to do is just see if anybody wants to speak. Share an experience that they've had, or kind of how they see this process working for them.
Sheldon, Joe has her hand up. Joe has her hand up.
Oh, good. I don't see that, but good.
Oh.
Can we get her
Here
on?
we go. Okay, I'm unmuted.
Oh, good.
I have a question for you, but I'm going to begin with my own story and then ask you the question. And by the way, I haven't a tendency to get smaller or thinner.
Oh, there are two
But
ways to
I
go,
do it.
right? Yeah.
But the Lord has blessed me, and I have a few years more than you. You have time to go.
Good.
Yes, yesterday there was a conversation that included having the bravery to speak, I guess and I'm experiencing that right now. I wanted to say that I had the good fortune to look back on my life from the perspective of Morya teachings. I'm now a 5th-year student.
Yeah.
And to recognize that when I was just 8 years old, I had an experience of both seeing and hearing a voice in my head. And basically what it said was, the teacher had told me I was going to skip a grade. And what it said to me was, it's true, you're very smart, but it's not for you. You have to help a whole lot of people. And, the surprising thing is I decided that was the truth of what was to happen. And so I've spent the whole life trying to follow that voice from within.
Marvelous.
The question I have for you is, I'll connect again with you and say, I believe that is the soul that was speaking from then. The question for you, which is the edge of my own awareness today, is sometimes I know things without really thinking them. Do you have that experience?
It depends on what I'm doing, I think. It's like I get led into certain lines of thought or activity, and I just learn to follow that instinct. So I'm not sure. I'm not sure if the same thing you're talking about or not, but it's important. Yeah. I think the main thing, all these books again, and we got them all around here, and I can read something that DK wrote, back in the 30s, and I've read it before, but it hits in another way, and I see exactly what he's doing, what he's trying to say to somebody in terms of what they can do with their life, or how things are going to be. But it's like he's speaking that to me, that this is kind of what I hear sometimes now that we go through this material again. But the point is that today we are going to get levels of teaching by, I think, by experience of what we're having, as long as we enter that experience or look at it, fairly to ourselves and say, what did I learn, or what was that all about? What was the gift that was given? Or what did I do that I could do differently moving forward? When those kind of thoughts begin to work through us, we are better word than, well, not hard word, we're developed into the fuller soul nature. Wow. Well, thank you. Wow. Yeah. Anybody else?
Thank you.
Oh boy. Yeah. Well. I see a comment here from Rose Bates. Knowing without thinking is intuition, a soul quality. Yes, indeed. And if we can believe that and follow that, and then recognize, look what's the guidance that I've gotten. Perfect.
Mm-hmm. I was very impressed with the previous presentation by Katya and Alexander.
Yep.
That is very beautiful. It feels to me as if not only do we receive impressions, but there comes a time when we know without using languaging or imagery at all. And that's what I was sort of asking if you had. A very fascinating development that suggests that, when we are on the other side, we're going to have a way to communicate. And I think it comes somehow by some other higher sense. That of course there is no color, for example. Therefore, there is no sound. But still, everyone knows what is going on, I think, or perhaps specializes in one area or another.
Well, that's great. Thank you very much for that. Just as a side, it just reminded me of something that, oh, Francis is there. Okay, good.
Hey, Sheldon.
Yeah.
Great to hear your story.
Great.
I really enjoyed that. One little thing I just wanted to mention is that just lately, I'm behind you about 6 years. So, I'm closing on you, though.
Take your time.
Just that I'll say something, and it's a kind of habitual, form of speech. And it will occur to me that this is not me. This is something I learned to do in all these years. It's an expression of my personality, but I don't even want to go. I don't want to get at all, like I usually do, mental on this.